Hi, this is Lot 76 Cars. My name's Simon and welcome to the German Car Day at Brooklands. Some great cars here today. Let's take you around and show you a few of them. And first up, an early-ish Bmw Z3. I think it may well be the 1.9, which is a 16-valve engine. Looks like an early car, it's an S, so it would probably be a 1998, I think. And on Brooklands' own stand is this fantastic Pagoda Mercedes from, I think, probably 1967. Isn't that lovely? Let's just take a quick look inside. It'd be rude not to, wouldn't it? Isn't that glorious? The horn on the centre rim there, that lovely wood-topped dashboard. This one is such a pretty car, isn't it? Now this is an E39 Bmw 3 Series. It's a 323i. Don't see so many of these about, and seldom do you see these as the Bauer sort of semi-convertible bodies. It's really pretty in that green colour. I don't know if it stands out so much on film, but certainly it's a very pretty car from this angle. E46 3 Series, and particularly the M Series cars, this M3 is certainly becoming a more appreciated breed. It looks really, really nice in that colour. I'm not sure if it's a manual. We'll have a look. Some were automatic, the sequential manual gearbox. And in fact, no, this is a manual, so that's a rarer car. Originally sold as a 1600 injected engine is the Golf Gti, the car that arguably started off the hot hatch trend. That's a beautiful car. It's got those fantastic BBS, or the badge there, gold and silver rims, and they really suit it. It looks like the car's been lowered a little bit. It's certainly a pretty car, isn't it? That Giugiaro styling of the original Golf stands out, and it's got some interesting badging. So the car was actually sold in the US market under the name Rabbit rather than Golf, although this is a right-hand drive car. Now I believe this is what is called the B2 Audi 80 based coupe. Not sure if it was actually 80 or just coupe. This is lovely. The same shell, more or less, that underpinned the Quattro. Actually quite a rare car. This is a C, so I guess it probably would be 85, 86. And it's in lovely condition. Just look at the size of those tiny wheels now. And it's a glorious looking car. Let's just take a look around the back of that one. You don't see so many of these, so I think it's worthwhile taking a longer look. It's got that great tail spoiler, and I think it's probably a later car, so the rear lights are smoked. Now this is an E39 Bmw. It's a 530d, so what's so unusual about that? Well, arguably nothing. However, somebody's converted this to a pickup. When's the last time you saw one of these? Certainly it's the first time I've ever seen one, so obviously somebody's done a great conversion from the estate car to the pickup, and a really unusual car. Let's take a look from the front, and pretty much you'd recognise it up to the B posts as an E39 Bmw. Here's a really nice 5 Series Bmw. It's an E12 from 1981. It's a 535i. So it's still packing a pretty respectable 220 brake horsepower. It's a really pretty car. Really like those BMW M stripes. They really set the car off, don't they? Something a bit newer is this Opel Gti, now with 115 brake horsepower and less weight than the equivalent Polo or Golf, significantly less. It's quite close to the iconic Mark 1 GTI Golf in terms of power to weight ratio and concept, and that's going to be a future classic, I think. Now the first of a couple of R107 base cars. This looks like an 86 D-plated convertible, which is a pretty car. I do like that cloth checkered interior, really of its time, isn't it? Now if you're looking for a bit more room, this R107 SLC Touring certainly would give you that. So effectively you've got all the benefits of the shape and I guess the look of the R107, the standard car, but you've got rear seats, which makes it a very different proposition and certainly far rarer than the 107 Roadster. Now at first sight you might think you're looking at a Lotus Elan, but in actual fact it's an Opel GT, sold in Europe, sold in extensive numbers I believe in the US. It's a pretty car, not sold here in the UK. It's obviously left-hand drive, but let's take a closer look at that shape as we go around the side. It's certainly got maybe some Elan influences to some extent. It's got those lovely pop-up lights, and in that primrose yellow colour it really pops, doesn't it? Look at the styling at the back. It's got some sort of like Ferrari-esque features. It's even got the round lights, so you can see what the Opel guys were trying to get to. This is another pretty coupe, much more of a regular four-seater, and this is a BMW 628i CSI, I believe. And that's a pretty car, isn't it? Again, packing of the period, smaller wheels, the sharp nose BMW front that many of us like, well I do anyway. Another R107 this time. This is also a relatively late car. It's what, an 86 I think on a D, 87 maybe. This had a relatively long production run as well as a car. I think it was in production I should say, from 72 to certainly the maybe in the late 80s I think, from memory. Very nice earliest Boxster entering the show. Former car of the year 1978, believe it or not, is this Porsche 928. Originally envisaged to actually replace the 911, but it never did. Followed by a very nice Opel Manta, I think. That's a lovely colour combination, is the gold with the black stripe, and it sounds really sweet as well. Those telephone dial type alloy wheels are certainly not off an XR3i. In this instance they're off, as I mentioned earlier, the former car of the year, the Porsche 928. What a glorious looking car. Looks nice in red, doesn't it? Now, I'm not a Beetle expert, but this relatively early-ish UK car, D66, it's right-hand drive, so it looks like an original UK car, or certainly from a right-hand drive market, is in fantastic order, and it's got some of those lovely details like those vents in the front, that beautiful chrome handle there. That's a lovely car, isn't it? A very nice white Pagoda. Oh, that sounds a sweet looking thing, doesn't it? Lovely car, absolutely lovely car. So a lovely example of a Mark II Golf GTI. You can see how the shape's evolved, and this one is a really nice looking car, again in that silver. But what makes it special is I do like those steel wheels. I'm not sure if that's the original steel wheel design, but it could well be, or certainly could be taken from another VW group vehicle. Now, looking from the front like a regular Z3, this is the more unusual Z3 three-door hatch. Some people unfortunately refer to this as the clown shoe shape. It's a bit Marmite in terms of the look of it, but certainly in terms of practicality you can't knock it. It's still a two-seater, but effectively what you've got is a decent bit of storage space in the back, and obviously what's handy, we're going down the shops, is that rear hatch, so something you could use every day. Now, taxing my knowledge here, I believe this is a W1 Mercedes. I think this is the 350 convertible. That's a pretty looking car, but next to it there's a real treat. This is badged as a 6.3 litre. Now, from memory, I can't remember what the story is with the 6.3, but so the Quattro Owners Club is here in force, and some more modern machinery there as well, which is no less impressive. Let's take a walk down that row and see what we can see. I won't attempt to even go into each of these in detail. Proving that the solid grey paint is very in vogue, as on my Mercedes 190 is this Audi S4. So quite good representation here. Now listen to that earlier Porsche 911 SC and a Porsche 356 Speedster. And in terms of sophisticated engine cooling, nothing more than a tennis ball. That's how to do it, isn't it? Now this is the full convertible Bmw E33 Series. Sounds like a 6-cylinder one. It certainly sounds very sweet. Sounds like a 325 or maybe a 320 at least. Now these are good value at the moment. The early CLSs, of which this is one, it's a pretty shape, isn't it? So based on the E-Class platform of the day, but with coupe styling, it still retains that practicality, but with a shape that's, some would argue, is a bit more pleasing to the eye than the equivalent E-Class of the day. Now this one could be yours. This is for sale. It's an E46 Bmw M3, and in fairness, although the car's a smidge under £30,000, it is in fantastic order. Many of these have rusted. Certainly this one's been kept in good order, or certainly restored. It's a lovely looking car, isn't it? These are still relatively quick cars even today. Next to it we've got a newer Z4, and just for reference, a 1 Series. Now look how big the 1 Series is compared to an E46. Shows you how much the cars have grown, doesn't it? Now what stands out with this R107 is not only the colour, which is glorious, a lovely blue. Looks like a relatively early car. It's got those Mexican hat style alloy wheels, as we've obviously come to see on older cars, small rims. And oh, it's from 78. It's a 78 car, so not that early. I think production started in 72. Nevertheless, very pretty car. Now these were the last of the air-cooled 911s, the 993s. This Carrera is a manual car, which is unusual. Many did have the Tiptronic, which is less favoured. These are not only attractive but usable sports cars these days, and quite desirable. Some would argue the ultimate 944 is this turbo, still packing 250 horsepower, so it's not necessarily a car that's particularly slow, but you've got the benefits of that styling, the +2 seating, and a reasonable level of power. Next to it, a new Porsche jumping a few generations. It's the all-electric Taycan, and that's a very pretty car. Now another Taycan is this one. This is quite a brave colour choice, but it really works. I'm not sure what the colour is. Let's check. Another turbo. This looks like an earlier car. It's got a beautiful tan interior and some later wheels on it by the look of it, or certainly maybe 911 wheels. Put that in the comments if you know, because I can't remember honestly. Mark V Golf GTI. I think this is regarded as a return to form after the frankly disappointing Mark IV Golf, but the Mark V GTI really is a car that was rightfully revered. A later Boxster. 2 Series Coupe. More modern, I think, just 3 Series there. My 190E is having a day out, having had some recent fettling. The first R129 I've seen today, that one's for sale as well, a 7995. Oh, it's a pity I haven't got my wallet with me, but that actually is a beautiful colour. That's very tempting, isn't it, for an R129? And an early Boxster, an X. I guess that's probably the 2.7. That's probably a 2000 registered car. Next to it, another R129 that's for sale. It's going to be difficult to avoid buying one today. This one's got the hard top fitted. It looks like it's a 92, so it's a little bit early. I think the other one's a 94. Just going past some more modern BMWs. And this is the 124 Coupe. And that's also a pretty car. It looks like it's got some of the AMG styling features. Certainly it's got those AMG type wheels on it, and looking at the back, it's got that quite attractive tail spoiler on there as well. It's badged in, oh, it's an E36, that's obviously why. Second generation Audi TT and another Z3, but honestly these small rims, these sort of telephone dial type rims on these, really make this car stand out. I prefer on those rather than the larger ones. Maybe I'm in a minority of one on that one. Engineered by Porsche, you can see even it's got Porsche rims on it, is this Audi Rs2 Avant. It's a really distinctive looking car, beautiful car in that colour, and certainly it's I think one of one today, to be honest with you. I haven't seen another one. If you want performance and practicality, here's it. I think these are quite expensive now. They're certainly very rare, built in small numbers, but a lovely classic. A couple of generations of 911 here, an earlier car, and then a later one, and I think that's a Targa. Looking at it, I must admit that blue really does stand out, really shows that car up well. Another E46 M3 here, and this one's the convertible, so we get a better chance to have a look inside that one. And it's also a manual, which is, you know, to me far more desirable. And if you want a practical four-seater convertible, I guess pretty much you found it. You're certainly going to have no shortage of performance there. Now this is the A124 to be precise, so it's the convertible again, another practical four-seater convertible, a theme developing here. Lovely burgundy metallic paint and a very nice tan interior. Joseph Lloyd of Lloyd Vehicle Consulting would be drawn to that like a magnet, I think. Very pretty car, that one. So this is a supercharged VW, we can see that much, but what makes it unusual, it's a supercharged VW Polo. The G40 sold in relatively small numbers, very uncommon to see these cars today. This is pretty, it's got some non-standard rims on it, but otherwise it looks like a standard car. Certainly a treat to see one of these. So 4.3 litres for less than £3,000. Show me that car. Well, here it is. It's a Mercedes-Benz Clk Avant. It's actually £2,800. I'll put the number up there. If any of you are interested, feel free to freeze the video and give the owner a ring before I do and get into an awful lot of trouble when I get back home. And this time, a 944 convertible this time. I've got to show this next car only because I just love the colour combination. It is a turbo. It says pretty openly, and you can't miss that on the front offside wing, can you? But I just think these are great looking cars, to be honest with you. I know we've seen a few today, so forgive me for indulging myself with this one, but with those colour coordinated white wheels, it's so of its time, isn't it? That custard yellow 911's a treat, isn't it? I'm drawn to something a bit earlier. Let's have a look at this E30 convertible. That's a lovely looking car, isn't it? That's a facelifted car because I think it's got the bigger bumpers on it. And it's the full convertible. I do like this interior. To be honest with you, I do prefer cloth to leather. And this has got this wonderful checkered leather interior, that very familiar dash. Built to take on more volume hatchbacks of the period is this E36 compact, built down to a price. I think there were some compromises and things like cheaper rear suspension and so on, but it's still a BMW and actually starting to become more interesting. This is a 316i and it's in jet black. A few generations of Porsche 911 here, from the latest cars to the 993 generation. That's a lovely sort of aqua greeny blue type colour, turquoise. That's a pretty car, isn't it? And again, some later cars here for comparison. What's not to like about a Porsche 911, guys? So I'm here with the owner of this E39 Bmw. Maybe, guys, you can tell us a bit about this this car. Let's just have a shot of the car there. Fantastic. And do you want to tell us a little bit about how you came to get it and the story about this car?
Yeah, this is a year 2000, so pre-facelift 523i. We bought it earlier this year, and we've driven it across Europe to Greece and back without fault.
How many miles was it?
4,000 miles.
Wow.
The car went spotless, no issues.
And I think you mentioned before it's relatively rare in Alpine White.
This is one of 2 in the country in Alpine White, and it's got a British green cloth interior.
Yeah, I've seen the cloth interior. It's quite unusual. And you mentioned about the first owner, the story with the first owner, about how he came to buy it.
He ordered it and bought it back here from the Munich factory in Germany.
Oh wow, fantastic.
So that they built it there for him. Yeah, it's all very clean and it's all original, everything.
Yeah.
All the original papers, invoices, those are from the dealership, those papers. And he's got, there's circles around the specification and the colour he wants in those.
Wow.
Yeah.
So here's an unusual car. It's an E92 Bmw. It's of one of 96 cars produced. Alpinas, this is an Alpina version. This built in relatively low numbers, just a few thousand cars a year, one of the few companies approved by BMW, and now in fact part of BMW, supplied by Sytner's, I think the sole UK agents. The owner's had it a short time, wants to make a few changes to it, wants to upgrade it. It's an absolutely lovely car and practical because it's the D3 turbo, so not only has it got the performance, but it's got some fuel economy with it, and who wouldn't want that these days? What a lovely car. Now you need to get down pretty low to the ground to get the best angle on this Audi 100 lowrider. So it looks like a relatively standard car, apart from the obvious air suspension, but it's really well done. Absolutely stunning condition. An Audi 100, but a 2-door. Where would you find an executive 2-door car these days? You simply wouldn't, would you? Absolutely beautiful car. Looks well used. Couple of child seats in the back, which is fantastic to see these cars being used on a daily basis. Famous for its standout handling. The replacement for the Sirocco is this VW Corrado. What an absolutely lovely car. I think it's one of the final editions. I think they were called Storm. Beautiful car with a pop-up spoiler that comes up at speed. Certainly these are becoming appreciated, and absolutely a high watermark for handling. Successor to the 944 is this 968 Club Sport. I think there were 2, Club and Club Sport. I think one was slightly less stripped out. Still got the pop-up lights, but obviously as you can see they're visible rather than hidden away. This one's got a roll cage. Completely the opposite end of the scale is this VW. Now let's take a close look at this one. If somebody can put in the comments what this is. It says it's a Thermador car cooler. Wow. I mean, if you haven't got air conditioning, then maybe that's the thing to have. Maybe it's one of those must-have accessories that Halford should be selling. It's certainly a relatively standard-looking car, sort of low-rider-ish. Beautiful colour, isn't it? Now, not nearly as old or as rough around the edges as this wrap would indicate. Is this Porsche 911 in Gulf colours? I think it might be a 993. Actually, I'm not sure, to tell you the truth. It's a Targa, I can tell you that much. Now, this is a stunner, isn't it? This Volkswagen Beetle convertible. Now, I know they're relatively commonplace, but it's such a pretty car. The owners parked this one in the shade so we can easily take a look at it. And what a stunning interior. It looks very pretty. I do like the early cars. As always, the hood sits quite away on top at the back. I suppose it maybe provides some aerodynamic benefits, who knows. And here we've got a 968, this time a convertible. A VW Caddy pickup, unusual to see one of those, and a Series 2 Golf GTI just entering the show. So I'm just going to have a chat with Vincent, who owns not one, this is my wife, but 2. Oh, apologies, he doesn't own 2, his wife has 1. Vincent, tell us about how...
I do actually, I own that as well.
Okay, you own a tractor as well, yeah. So 3 Porsches. So tell us how somebody comes to own 2 or 1.5 or whatever Porsche 356s. Have you had these long?
Yes, about since the early to mid 80s when they were throwing them away.
Oh wow. And you mentioned to me this one here, the blue one's got wider tyres on it than standard. It was what, raced or something like this?
No, just because there was a fairly early change because the tyres were terrible. They were skinny and were very, very, very direct. It's very direct steering anyway. So for health and safety reasons, for one's own health and safety, they father-in-law of one of the owners said, "You're not driving on them," because my daughter's in that car, and upgraded to they're only slightly wider.
So this is a 55, and this one's a 60. So what's to the uneducated 356 people amongst us, what's the difference between the two? What's the major model changes between them? That one's got a sunroof, you mentioned, which is incredible to see a sunroof on that period of car. But what's the difference between them?
Oh wow! Well, first of all, the shape. If you look at the shape, you can see the shape's entirely different. Whilst it's been an evolutionary change, it's very different. The windscreen. Windscreen on this is a bent screen, and you see it's narrower, and this is wider, and they just sort of opened up the visibility. So if I put this there. See that although
they are significantly different. It's not obvious from first sight because you would take a 356, but you can see the stance of the bonnet. In fact, probably, I guess the panels are not particularly interchangeable by the look of it.
No, not
They're completely different cars.
Yeah.
Oh, that's something I've learned today, Vincent, so thank you. So to close the show, we've got a W201. This time it's a 2.6 car, one family owned from new, 150,000 miles. Just had the opportunity to speak to the owner who's bought it with his dad. What a lovely, lovely story. And the fact he still uses this on a regular basis. It's the 2.6, so it's a little bit thirstier than the 4-cylinder cars, but quite desirable, does have the air conditioning. And as I say, one family owned, father and son owned from new. And the son remembers buying it with his dad. What a lovely story, what a lovely car. So thanks for joining me on lot 76 cars at the German Car Day at Brooklands. I hope you've enjoyed some of the cars here today, like this absolutely stunning Porsche 928 behind me. As always, please like, share, subscribe. It all helps with the YouTube algorithm, and I look forward to joining you on the next one. Thanks for watching.